Chandogya Upanishad in simple English, presented by Svayam Prakash Sharma, part 2 of 14. This part concludes the first chapter of the Upanishad and contains sections 5 to 13. Explanation of the Udgeet continues and certain sounds used in the recitation of psalm hymns are given. The Upanishad. What is the Udgeet is Om, and what is Om is the Udgeet. And Udgeet is the sun in the sky, and the sun is Om, for it is sounding Om all the time. Kaushitki said to his son, I sang praise to him alone, therefore you are my only son. Meditate on the various rays of the sun as many, and you will have many sons. This he said with reference to the divinities. Now with reference to the body, one should meditate on the breath in the mouth as the Udgeet, for it is saying Om all the time. Kaushitki said to his son, I sang praise to him alone, therefore you are my only son. Sing praise to the breaths as many, and you will have many sons. What is the Udgeet is Om, and what is Om is the Udgeet. If one knows this, then from the seat of the presiding priest of the sacrifice, the Hotra priest, all wrong singing is corrected. Yes, all wrong singing is corrected. This earth is the Rik, and fire is the Psalm. This Psalm rests on that Rik, therefore the Psalm is sung as resting on the Rik. This earth is Sa, and fire is Am, and together they become Psalm. The sky is the Rik, and the air is Psalm. This Psalm rests on that Rik, therefore the Psalm is sung as resting on the Rik. The sky is Sa, and the air is Am, and together they become Psalm. The heaven is Rik, and the sun is Psalm. This Psalm rests on that Rik, therefore the Psalm is sung as resting on the Rik. Heaven is Sa, and the sun is Am, and together they become Psalm. The stars are Rik, and the moon is Psalm. This Psalm rests on that Rik, therefore the Psalm is sung as resting on the Rik. The stars are Sa, and the moon is Am, and together they become Psalm. The white light of the sun is the Rik, and the blue extreme darkness is Psalm. This Psalm rests on that Rik, therefore the Psalm is sung as resting on the Rik. The white light of the sun is Sa, the blue extreme darkness is Am, and together they become Psalm. The immortal golden person who is seen within the sun has a golden beard and golden hair. Everything in him is golden, right up to the tips of his nails. Gold symbolizing life, light, and immortality. His eyes are like a red lotus flower. His name is high, is Ut. He has risen above all evil. And he who knows this, he too rises above all evil. His songs are the Rik and the Psalm, therefore they are called the Udgeet. That is how the Udgatra priest, he who is the singer of the Udgeet, gets his name. He is the Lord of the worlds which are beyond the sun in the sky, and which are beyond the desires of the gods as well. This was with reference to the divinities. Now with reference to the self, the body. Speech is the Rik, breath is the Psalm. This Psalm rests on that Rik, therefore the Psalm is sung as resting on the Rik. Speech is Sa, and breath is Am, and together they become Psalm. The eye is the Rik, the soul is the Psalm. This Psalm rests on that Rik, therefore the Psalm is sung as resting on the Rik. The eye is Sa, and the soul is Am, and together they become Psalm. The ear is the Rik, the mind is the Psalm. This Psalm rests on that Rik, therefore the Psalm is sung as resting on the Rik. The ear is Sa, and the mind is Am, and together they become psalm. The white light of the eye is the rik, and the blue extreme darkness is psalm. This psalm rests on that rik, therefore the psalm is sung as resting on the rik. The white light of the eye is sa, and the blue extreme darkness is am, and together they become psalm. The person who is seen within the eye is the rik hymn. He is the psalm chant. He is the ukt, the recitation. He is the jajus, the sacrificial formula. He is the brahm, the prayer. The form of this one within the eye is the same as the form of the person within the sun. The songs of both are the same. The songs of one are the songs of the other. Both have the same name as well. He is the Lord of the worlds which are under this one, and also of men's desires. So those who sing on the musical instrument, the veena, sing of him. Therefore, they are winners of wealth. He who, with this knowledge, sings the psalm, he sings of both. Through the person in the sun, he obtains the worlds which are beyond the sun, and also the desires of the gods. And through this person in the eye, he obtains the worlds which are under the latter, and also the desires of men. Therefore, the Udgatra priest who knows this should say the following: what desire may I win for you by singing? He who knows all this, he truly becomes capable of obtaining desires by singing the psalm. Yes, by singing the psalm. Three persons, Silak, Chikitan, and Pravahan, were well versed in the Udgeet. They got together and decided to have a discussion on the Udgeet. Pravahan said, "You two discuss first. I would like to listen to two Brahmins discussing the Udgeet." Silak started the discussion by questioning Chikitan. He asked, "What is the goal of psalm?" "It is sound." "What is the goal of sound?" "Breath." "What is the goal of breath?" "Food." "What is the goal of food?" "Water," he replied. "What is the goal of water?" "The world of heaven." "What is the goal of the world of heaven?" "One should not go beyond the world of heaven," he replied. "I establish the psalm in the world of heaven, for the psalm is praised in heaven." Then Silak said to Chikitan, "Chikitan, your psalm is unestablished because it has an end. If now someone were to say to you, 'Your head will fall off,' surely your head will fall off." On which Chikitan said, "In that case, I would like to know from you, sir, what is the goal of the heavenly world?" He replied, "This world. One should not go beyond this world as support. I establish the psalm on this world as support, for the psalm is praised as the support in this world." Then Pravahan, who was silent till then, spoke, "Your psalm, Silak, has an end too, and therefore it cannot be the final goal. So if someone were to say to you now that your head will fall off, surely your head will fall off." Then Silak said, "So you tell us, Pravahan." "I will," replied Pravahan. He asked, "What is the goal of this world?" "Space," replied Pravahan. "For all these beings are produced from space. They return back into space, for space is greater than all these. Space is the final goal. This is the Udgeet, the highest and the best. It has no end. He who, with this knowledge, meditates on the Udgeet, the highest and the best, he himself becomes the highest and the best, and he obtains the highest and the best worlds." When Ati Dhanvan Shaunak taught the Udgeet to Udar Shandilya, he also said, "As long as your descendants have knowledge of this Udgeet, so long will their lives be the highest and the best in this world, and their state will also be the highest and the best in the other world as well." Thus, one who knows the Udgeet as such and meditates on it his life in this world and the next becomes the highest and the best? Yes, it becomes the highest and the best in both the worlds. Now we come to the divinities connected with the sacrifices, which are told in the form of a story. During the time of the Kurus, there lived in the village of the owner of elephants a very poor Brahmin named Ushasti Chakrayan, along with his young intelligent wife Atiki. Once all the crops were destroyed by hailstorms, and Ushasti had no food to eat. Starving, he went to the house of the elephant owner and begged for food from him. The man was eating beans and said to Ushasti, "All the food that I have are the beans which are on my plate and which I am eating. They are therefore impure and cannot be given to you, a Brahmin." Ushasti replied, "Never mind, sir. Please give me some of these beans, or else I will die of hunger." The elephant owner then gave Ushasti some beans from his plate and also offered him water from his glass. Ushasti accepted the beans but refused the water, saying the water was impure and therefore he could not accept it. The elephant owner pointed out the inconsistency in Ushasti's behavior, saying, "Were not the beans which you accepted also impure?" To which Ushasti replied, "Yes, they were impure, but I accepted them to save my life, or I would have died of hunger. There was no such compulsion in respect of water, which I was within my rights to refuse as impure." Ushasti took the beans home, and after eating some, he gave the remaining to his wife, who, having already eaten, well, kept the beans safely. The next morning, Ushasti arose hungry and said, "If only I had something to eat, I could make some money. The king is having a sacrifice performed for himself. He might choose me to perform the priestly duties." His wife brought out the beans which she had kept from the previous night, placed them before him, and said, "Here are the beans from last night, sir." Ushasti ate the beans and went over to where the sacrifice was being performed. He sat down near the Udgeet priest, the priest who chants hymns from the Samved, and as the priests were about to start singing the hymns, he said to the priest who sings the introductory praise, the Prastotra priest, "O Prastotra priest, if you sing the introductory praise without knowing the divinity that belongs to it, and if you perform the sacrifice without knowing its meaning, your head will fall off." In the same way, he said to the Udgeet priest, "If you chant the Udgeet without knowing its divinity, your head will fall off." And to the Pratihatra priest, who sings the response, "If you take up the response without knowing the divinity that belongs to it, your head will fall off." At this, all the priests stopped what they were doing and sat down in silence. The sacrifice stopped. Seeing his sacrifice stop, the king, who was the institutor of the sacrifice, said to Ushasti, "Who are you, sir?" To which he replied, "I am Ushasti Chakrayan." Then the king said to him, "I did in fact look for you, sir, to perform these priestly functions, but not finding you, I had to choose others. But now that you are here, please take up all the priestly functions." Ushasti replied, "As you wish, sir. With my permission, the others may now sing the praises and begin the sacrifice. But whatever wealth you give them for services rendered, the same you must give to me as well." To which the king readily agreed. Then one by one the priests asked him the answers to the questions posed by him to them. First, the Prastotra priest asked him, "You said to me that if I sing the introductory praise without knowing the divinity that belongs to it, my head will fall off. I ask you, sir, which is that divinity?" Ushasti replied, "That divinity is breath. All beings here get life with breath, and when breath leaves them, then life also leaves them along with breath. This is the divinity belonging to the Prastav, and if you had sung the Prastav without knowing the divinity belonging to it, despite my warning you, your head would certainly have fallen off." Next the Udgeet priest asked him, "You told me that if I sing the Udgeet without knowing the divinity that belongs to it, my head would fall off. I ask you, sir, which is that divinity? Ushastri replied, the divinity that is connected with the Udgeet is the sun. The sun sings for all beings when he is up. And if you would have chanted the Udgeet without knowing the divinity connected with it, your head would certainly have fallen off. Finally, the Pratihatra priest asked, you said to me that my head would fall off if I took up the response without knowing the divinity that belongs to it. I ask you, sir, which is that divinity? Ushasti replied, that divinity is food. All beings live when they eat food. This is the divinity that belongs to the Pratihar. And if you had taken up the Pratihar without knowing the divinity that belongs to it, despite my warning, your head would certainly have fallen off. Now we come to the Udgeet of the dogs, which is a satire on priestly rituals. Once, when Bak Dalbhya went out for the study of the Vedas, he saw a white dog. Other dogs gathered around him and said, obtain food for us by singing as humans do, for we are hungry. The white dog said to them, come here tomorrow morning. Out of curiosity, Bak Dalb kept watch to see what would happen next. The next morning he saw that the dogs came and moved along, joined to each other, just as priests do when they are about to chant the hymn of praise. The dogs then sat down together and made the sound hymn. Then they sang, Om, let us eat. Om, let us drink. Om, may the gods Varun, Prajapati and Savitar bring food here. O Lord of food, bring food here. Yes, bring it here for us. Thus they sang. Now we come to certain sounds used in reciting the psalm chants and their mystical meaning. This world is the syllable how. The air is the syllable hai. The moon is the syllable at. The self is the syllable ih. The fire is the syllable I. These are the sounds used in reciting the psalm hymns. The sun is the syllable u. Invocation is the syllable I. The Vishwadevas is the syllable o, ho, I. Prajapati is the syllable him. Breath is sound. Food is ya. Viraj is speech. The undefined is the variable. The 13th, the interjectional sound hum. He who in this way knows the mystical meaning of the sounds used in the psalm hymns, then speech gives to him the milk, which is the milk of speech itself. He becomes rich in food. He becomes an eater of food. He who in this way knows the mystic meaning of the psalm hymns. Yes, who knows the mystic meaning of the psalm hymns. This concludes part 2 and chapter 1 of the Chandogya Upanishad. Om Shanti 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 Om.